morning, everybody. I'm going to call this Okeechobee Utility Authority agenda, our meeting, Board of Director meeting for March 17th to order. I get everybody to please stand with me and join me in the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Amen. Determination of voting members, I'll take the roll at this time. Ms. Anderson, we know she's not going to be here. Mr. Clay? Here. Mr. Creasman's here. Mr. Fadley? Mr. Moldenhauer? Here. Mr. Nelson?
Yes, sir.
Ms. Trent? And Mr. Snyder. So we have Mr. Moldenhauer representing Glades County, Mr. Clay and Mr. Nelson for the city of Okeechobee, and I am representing Okeechobee County. Moving on to agenda item number 2, election of officers. First office would be chairperson, so I'll turn that over to you, Mr. Hayford.
Thank you, soon to be Mr. Past Chairman, maybe new Chairman. As the Executive Director, I will take over the voting for nominations and voting for the chairperson. So I would open it up to nominations.
You got one more year, don't you?
I'd like to make,
All of them can serve one more year.
I'd like to make the nomination of Mr. Creasman to continue as chair.
Second.
Okay. So we have a first and a second for nomination of John Creasman. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Ayes have it.
Nice have it.
New Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, sir. All right, we will be having the election next for our vice chair. Presently, Ms. Trent sits as our vice chair. She also has 1 year. So what is the board's pleasure?
I make a motion we leave Tabitha as our vice chair.
Motion by Mr. Clay.
Second.
Second, Mr. Nelson. Any other nominations? Any other nominations? Being none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. See, you're not here, you get elected to things. That's a bad thing. All right, and the next election we'll have is for second vice chair. Presently, Steve Nelson is our second vice chair. He also has 1 more year.
You want to do it, or you want to make Melanie do it, since she ain't here?
Nah, I can do it again.
I'll nominate Steve Nelson.
All right, second.
Second by Mr. Clay. Any other nominations? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Easy change. All right, thank you, everybody. Moving on to agenda item number 3, additions or deletions. I'd like to add one issue that came in, or one agenda item that came in late. I was notified about it yesterday afternoon. It's the WISE request to address OUA board. And if we could slide that in between 16 and 17? Does that suit the board?
Sure.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Okay, agenda item number 4, the meeting minutes.
I make a motion we accept as written.
Motion by Mr. Clay to accept as written.
Second.
Second by Mr. Nelson. Any discussion? Being none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Agenda item number 5, employee recognition. All right, Mr. Gall, would you join me down front, please? It gives me great pleasure to present Mr. Gall with his recognition for 5 years of service as an employee of the Okeechobee Utility Authority, our financial director. George, on behalf of the board, thank you very much. Here's a certificate.
Get together like you like each other. Come on now.
This is cool, man.
Thanks, George. Thanks, George.
5 years already.
Already, it doesn't seem that long, does it?
No.
Like, it doesn't seem like 5 years. Okay, moving on to agenda item number 6, the consent agenda. Would any board member like to pull any items for discussion?
I make a motion, we accept as written.
Motion by Mr. Clay to accept as written,
Second?
second by Mr. Nelson. Further discussion? Being none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. All right, we're going to jump all the way down now to the addition we've added to our board package, agenda item number 16.5, let's call it. The WISE request to address the OUA board. Mr. Hayford.
So, Mr. Chairman and board members, the Weiss family is here today. They were the previous owner of the property at 817 Southeast 10th Street. They sold the property on or about February 22nd. Evidently, when they got a bill at the beginning of March, they came in to give us the sale of the property information, change of ownership. And during that time period of that last month, the flow at that house went from the low hundreds, or certainly under 1,000, to that 1 month of almost 28,000 gallons went through the meter. And so it is a water and sewer account, so they were, the bill was in the order of $450, $452. I had a discussion with Mr. Weiss to find out if they had done any kind of landscaping, pressure washing, filling a pool, broken water line, something on the outside that we could then credit as a sewer credit. And he stated clearly that that didn't happen and he wasn't going to go there with that kind of request. So it was left up to that the only option available to me is to bring it to the board, to have that discussion with the board to waive those fees, because there was not a sewer credit, there wasn't a broken meter, there was not something that I could do to change the outcome. Mr. and Mrs. Weiss are here this morning to speak to the board if you're so inclined, but it is presented for your consideration this morning.
Nobody's been in there since Patty.
Could you please
Come on, stand up.
step up and identify yourself, and then we're good to go.
Rocky Wise, my wife, Elizabeth Wise. She's wrote this. If she don't mind, board, can she please read this to y'all?
Absolutely, please.
Thank you very much.
I'm the one with the words.
Yeah, I'm not politically correct.
So good morning. I assume you've had a chance to read our written statement about why we're here. But if you haven't, the brief version is that my mother, Patty Box, was living at 817 Southeast 10th Street, and upon her death on October 25th, 2021, the property was signed over to me and my husband, Rocky. No one has been staying in the house since November. The only going into the house has just been to get boxes and remove them, so there's been no water usage in the house. When the new owner of the property, Casey Hoover, called to turn the water on, he was notified of a $452 fee due to almost 28,000 gallons of water being used. And despite the fact that the water bills for the house have been consistently around $45 ever since her passing, 2 inspections were done that ensured there were no leaks in the house. And then when the person from OUA was sent to turn the water on for Casey, they sat and they monitored the gauge, and nothing was happening. There was no movement. We were informed that we were still responsible for the bill. The only option we were given was to sign an affidavit saying we had filled a swimming pool or watered the lawn, and that if we did that, we could have the bill cut in half. But we can't sign
We're
an
not gonna
affidavit.
sign
Okay. We can't sign an affidavit to that effect because we did not do those things, and we're not going to sign our name to something that we didn't do. We acknowledge why you guys are reluctant to say there could be a mistake on OUAs, and we get that because that would open up a whole kettle of fish of everybody saying, oh, if there was a mistake, well, there was a mistake with my bill too. We understand that. But no one has been in the home until February 22nd was closing. So that's when we turned the keys over. That's when the new owner started going in, doing his thing. There's no leak. We've had everything checked. There's absolutely no evidence of a leak. The meter is not reading any kind of unusual usage. The lawn is dead, completely dead. There's no swimming pool.
How's your
There-
neighbor's lawn look?
Dead, very dead.
I did have that discussion with Mr. Hayford. I said 28,000 gallons. I work with water, but in a much bigger fashion. Was somebody hooking up for months and we didn't know about it? You know, but we own the 815 house next to it, which was Patty's as well, and Paul's. So we know it wasn't that house. There's a privacy fence around the back and on the sides. You're kind of like, where did 28,000 gallons of water go?
Because nobody's got a good looking lawn.
Nobody's got a good looking lawn. Mr. Hayford mentioned leaking toilets. I looked that up as well. We're talking, there's a possibility of them leaking 3,000 gallons a month, not
A
20
day for a month.
Yeah, but not 28,000 gallons worth. I just, mechanical things go bad. Stuff happens, and that's what I expressed to Mr. Hayford. Things happen. I get this. I work with this type of stuff as well. Whether, I'm not trying to say it was the meter reader, might have messed up, but mechanical, electrical stuff happens. We clearly see stuff, something's happened here. And when I called Mr. Hayford to begin with, I was, sir, whatever we can do, look, I'll buy half the bill, you buy half the bill. And that's when we come up, well, if you can tell me you done something other where our water didn't go to sewer, and I said, I cannot do that. I cannot lie. And sir, you know, I said that several times to you.
And no one was asking you?
No, sir, but I just cannot do that. That is,
Yeah, no,
I'm
that's
not gonna
fine.
sign an affidavit saying that we did this when we did
It's
not.
just that when their houses are transferred, some people do a lot of pressure washing.
Right.
lawn irrigation.
No.
I'm not at the site,
Yes,
I don't know.
And then,
We
like you said, his
understand.
last resort was for us to come here, and now I burnt 10 hours annual leave. Luckily, it's spring break for my wife to be here. So no matter what, I'm out of money that we don't know where this water went to.
So, long story short, we want to resolve this fairly. We understand that you guys have a job to do. We understand that you want to abide by your rules the best that you can, but we've done our due diligence. We haven't seen any kind of evidence of water being used. We just want a fair resolution, and we're asking that you help us reach that.
So let me just add a little thing. We are in agreement the meter is mechanical in nature.
Yes, sir.
Other than just the register reporting the value, it's mechanical in nature. So it either, when they fail, they generally fail.
I don't buy that. I know where you're going. When they fail, and that's that.
No, let me finish.
Yes, sir.
When they fail, and by fail, I mean it's outside the accuracy range. It may still be turning, but it's failing because it's outside the accuracy zone. And so when they fail, they generally fail in the favor of the end user because they start to turn slow, which means you might have 100 gallons go through it and it's only going to report 90 gallons. So that's the nature of the mechanical meter. The other thing I would share with you, that meter was installed in 2020, August, so it's not quite 2 years old. They come with a 1.5 million gallon warranty, and we're only at 43,000 gallons. So if it gives you any comfort level, the meter installed is relatively new, should be fairly accurate. And it is reporting, and I can give
The
you.
guy was there yesterday, I'm pretty sure. I think I'm seeing him leaving the neighborhood about 5.
We sent somebody by to check it again. If there was a reading of 40,000 gallons going since the 1st of March, well, then that would certainly lead credence to there's something wrong with the meter, and it was in the few hundred gallons. So it's back to reporting to where it was before this, just to give you the picture from our side where we're at.
And we understand that. We're just asking you to acknowledge that, you know, we have done our we've done everything. You know, we sold the property, so clearly the new owner, he had his inspections done, everything was combed over. There's no leak anywhere. The only possible explanation would be, like Rocky said, somebody is hooking up to the water in the neighborhood, but we don't see any evidence of that. Our neighbor has a dog outside that would be going bonkers at all hours of the day if somebody was trying to hook up to the water. There's no water. And so we can't figure out where this came from, especially since the meter has consistently been running low, and it's just been that 1 month where it didn't just run high, it went
Ran.
crazy.
Tom, what do you think?
I just had one question. Today is March the 17th. Has there been a meter reading currently
We went back a few days ago to check the meter and just to see, because again, if it was up at 30,000 or 40,000 gallons, because once they break, they stay broken. Then it would lead credence to the idea that there's something wrong. Well, it was back at a couple hundred gallons of use since we read the meter at the beginning of March. So it's back down to a few hundred gallons.
Has there been water usage there since the 1st of March?
The new owner took possession on February 22nd, and so at that point, we've had nothing to do with the property. We turned the keys over. They've been trying to move in, they've been trying to paint.
I know Casey does have both bathrooms out, so there has basically been, I mean, if he has, it's been watering the yard a little bit. Sinks,
Yeah.
hands, and that's about it, because he isn't remodeling the house. So, no, there shouldn't be big-time use of water in that house at all.
It appears to me that you sold the house on the 22nd of February.
That was the date
Somewhere
of
between
closing.
February 22nd and the next meter reading, early March, 28,000 gallons was consumed
Yes, sir.
somewhere.
Somewhere.
Why in the world didn't you come down here and shut off your account when you closed?
We called within a couple days of closing.
That would have solved the whole problem. If you didn't have your name attached to this account at the time after at closing, then we would know where to.
I
Well, we did
understand
that
that.
as good people, because Casey said, look, I'll get to it, I'll do this, and we said, we'll leave it on. We know him personally. And we're just trying to help a young couple out. And we'll leave this going first of the month, we'll switch over, it is what it is.
So do y'all want to split the bill? Is that what you're asking?
We'd be willing to do that. Just,
Mr. Clay, and one more thing I'd like to address is I kind of wish you'd give Mr. Hayford a little more leeway. And I spoke with him about this, so somebody like us wouldn't have to show up to argue our point. Look, I'm willing, because I did. I said, sir, right now, something happened with this bill. Right now, today, what can we do? I'll split it with you, walk away, bygones be bygones, and we're done with it. And he said, I can't do that unless it was a signed affidavit. Now, today, I mean, like I said, we will, I don't, I'm showing my hand, to get out half the bill, yes, sir, we will, but I mean, I'd like to see you forgive it, because I've taken time out of my day, so has my wife.
Legally, we can't forgive it.
Forgive it.
Our way our bond covenants is wrote,
Okay.
we can't forgive it, but I think we could do the half, can't we, Tom?
The sewer part?
Still giving away water if you do half.
If you so choose, you certainly can. Here, there's no explanation. There's been nothing found. I'm at a loss. I don't,
That's why we're here too, sir.
well, the lightning struck. I don't know whether there's nothing amiss that's been found.
And they've done every step that everybody would do. You know, I mean, the house has been inspected twice.
Normally, we would not. Normally, this board would not, because we got other customers too, and
Yes.
we understand.
We understand that totally.
time to time, we have these requests that come in here, and most of the time, there's an explanation. Just about, I think the last one was the broken pipe, the water going into the canal.
Well, no, that one, the one with the ex-guy, the ex-owner, turning the water under the house on, remember?
Going through bankruptcy.
Yeah, that was,
Well, summarizing, you know, we provide a service
Yes, sir.
and we condition the water. We've got expenses involved in the per gallon of water. And the bond covenants and all that, we can't write it off.
Yes, sir.
You have the option of going to the new owner and recouping some of that money where we don't have. So you have options, we don't. That's,
I'm
We,
not gonna
we understand
stay on
that,
I'm not gonna do
sir.
that to Casey.
They're a young couple. They're just getting started. They have a kid. We sold them the property for much less than we probably could have gotten for it, specifically because we care about them and we want them to get off to a good start. And that's why we're here today, because we don't want to stick them with this. They've got enough on their plate. You know, they're trying to get established.
understood, understand. And I know Casey and her mom, dad.
Yeah, you know, we don't want to stick this on them.
I mean, just, we could do away with the sewer part of it.
that's half.
Is that half?
Yes, sir.
Oh, it comes out to exactly half.
Well, I mean, that's the reason why we have that. There are people that, plant a bunch of trees or fill their pool, and we can offer this one-time sewer credit, and it happens on a regular basis. And it didn't happen in this case, but we do have that option open to you that,
That way the water's paid for, and,
it's not like you're wiping it completely.
right.
Correct. If you're, I'm gonna,
I make a motion that we settle for half.
motion by Mr. Clay to settle for half, second by Mr. Nelson. Harry, any discussion?
Yeah, I think we should amend that motion to say that we'll accept the sewer credit.
Sewer credit. Yeah, I
Who said?
So you would amend your motion to the sewer credit, not the half. Okay, you agree, Mr. Nelson?
Yes, I do.
Okay. Any further discussion? You okay with this, Mr. Attorney?
I don't vote.
I'm looking for your guidance, sir. Okay. Okay, all in favor of the motion? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Sorry we couldn't do any more, guys.
Thank you very much. I
We
appreciate it.
appreciate you hearing
A
us
little more
out.
than half.
Thank
Sir,
you.
it's a little more than half.
Well,
Okay.
192.
Yes, sir.
But again, we have a bond covenants that says that we cannot give a teaspoon of water away until we get it all paid off.
Okay. Well, and if you, I wouldn't have had to sign an affidavit like I told Mr. Schaefer. I'm not gonna lie, that's all.
Well,
Not asking you for line.
our,
Well,
we know,
we know.
but
Say that-
for a
Something
dishonest
else
person, that would have been
You
a,
have an obligation that when you sell a property, that you contact all your utilities, because you are still responsible unless you contact them. All right?
yes, we understand.
I
It all
understand-
worked out.
And I understand your point of
Thank
view
you.
to help the people. The bottom line is it's taken care of, and let's hope that everybody has a good, healthy life.
And your point is well taken about giving him a little bit more wiggle room, but I don't think that's safe at this point.
But at least, I mean, that would have negated all of us being here.
Yes.
Enjoy your spring break, go to work.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Thank you,
Appreciate it.
guys.
We appreciate
Take care.
you all. Thank you.
Okay, moving on the agenda, 17, presentation of fiscal year 21 financial statement, audit report, governance letter, and annual financial report. Mr. Gall?
Yes, morning, Board. Mr. Morton's here from the Owen Holton Minor Auditing Firm. They've done our audit, and it's a satisfactory audit, and he'll present it for us.
All right, well, thank you for having me here on this St. Patrick's Day, and I'll just kind of hit some of the highlights in the report and then open it up to any questions you have. And there's actually, of the some 60 pages in here, there's only 4 or 5 reports that we're actually responsible for. The rest of it is all the responsibility of the authority. And the first item is our opinion, and that's what everybody goes to first, usually is. And it is what's an unmodified or commonly called a clean opinion, which means these statements are fairly stated in accordance with accepted accounting principles, which is what you want. And the second report we do is a report on your internal controls and your compliance with laws and regulations. And based on that report, we didn't have any comments to management. And the third report is kind of a special report. It's called the single audit report because you got over $750,000 from the state of Florida for your construction projects required to do extra internal control and compliance work. And again, we didn't have any comments in that report. And the next one is the management letter, which is required by auditing standards, but then the Auditor General for the state also adds about 4 or 5 pages to that report. And again, there were no comments. And then the last report we do is required by Florida statutes, and that is on your investment policy. And again, you complied with your investment policy, so you should be happy with that. And George and his staff did a good job. This is one of our cleaner audits, and it's always one of the first we get completed. We're always happy to come out here and work. And just to hit some of the highlights in the audit, there were new accounting standards this year, so really it's comparable to prior year, and there's nothing to bring your attention to there. There was a new Florida statute passed this year, kind of targeting special districts. And because of that, there are 2 new schedules in there. There's a budget to actual schedule, and then there's just another schedule of some statistics that somebody wants to compile. And then there's a third new schedule of revenue expenses, breaking it out between wastewater and water. And that's going to eventually be required by your USDA loan. So staff just wanted to get that in there early so you've got some data going forward. Just to hit some of the highlights in the financials on pages 10 and 11 is your balance sheet. And one thing I'd like to point out to you in your non-current assets section, kind of in the middle of the page, on page 10, is net pension asset. And that went up to 1.9 million this year compared to about 300,000 last year. And what that means is in the pension plan for the agency's employees, the value of the assets in the plan is more than what the actuary projects as the expected liability at this point in time. And the reason that went up so much this year is because the plan had about 18% investment return, which is what most pension plans are seeing, but so it really doesn't have any impact on the story right now, but it shows the plan's healthy and you shouldn't really be expecting contributions to increase significantly over the years. So that's always a good thing. And on the bottom of page 11, your unrestricted net position, that's really money that's available going forward to future years, and that increased about 150,000 from last year. And then moving on to the income statement on page 12, the revenues went up compared to last year by about 650,000, which is mainly in the water charges, which increased about 400,000. And in the expenses, wastewater was down about 100,000 from last year, and administrative and general was down about 400 from last year. And if you look at the budgetary schedule, all the budget numbers were also significantly favorable this year. And other than that, there really isn't anything I need to draw your attention unless anyone has any questions on anything in particular.
Nice, clean audit.
Anybody from the board have any questions for Mr. Morton?
It's just nice to see all the equity.
Job well done.
We certainly appreciate all you do for us. Thank you very much, and I wish we could have you stay around longer and ask you a lot of questions, but when it's as clean as it is, you know, we really don't have anything for you. But thank you so much. It's very good news. Good news.
Thank you, Jerry.
We need a motion to accept. I'll entertain a motion that the board accept the fiscal year 21 financial statement, audit report, and annual financial report.
Make the motion.
Motion by Mr. Nelson,
Second.
second by Mr. Clay. Any further discussion? Being none, all in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. All right, we're going to move down to agenda item number 18 at this point, the ranking of interim financing. Mr. Hafer? Or Mr. Dahl?
Again, good morning, Board. There was a committee of 3 of us. I'd like to first publicly thank India Rydell and Kelly Carson for helping us rank these RFPs for interim financing.
We call her Riedel.
Riedel, right, you're right, it's Riedel. It's not Rydell, it's Riedel. Thank you for pointing that out. So as you see in the middle of the page, we came up with criteria that added up to 100% of how we would rank the banks that submitted loan proposals. And it's basically 35% qualifications, and then the rest is really loan structure, except for 31% being what it would be, the costs associated with it. And we went through this process twice, because the first time they came back, there was too many questions in an RFP that weren't answered by the 3 banks. So we asked them to, I sent them a request pointing out all the parts that weren't answered properly by all 3 banks. So this is a second RFP coming in. So when the second one came in, Truist Bank was still not in compliance, so we had to eliminate them as their proposal as being qualified. So if you go to the next page in the package, you'll see our ranking form. And at the top, you'll see that in terms of qualifications, Live Oak Bank was significantly higher than South State Bank. They were both pretty equally qualified on loan structure, both pretty equally qualified on loan terms and loan security. Reporting requirements, Live Oak Bank didn't understand that we need more than 90 days to get our audit done. And then when it comes down to cost, though, South State Bank was significantly better or less costly than Live Oak Bank. So the total ranking at the bottom is 223 for Live Oak Bank from the committee members, and then 247 for South State Bank from the committee members. So the committee recommends that South State Bank, but obviously there's other things that might come into consideration. And so you'll see right under the ranking, we did not consider the asset deposit size of the bank, their proximity to OUA, and any prior experience we've had with South State Bank or Truist Bank. So again, the committee's recommending South State Bank based on the ranking, but obviously it's the committee's decision, or the board's decision, to make the final recommendation here.
Thank you, Mr. Gall. Any
Questions?
thoughts or ideas?
I mean, he had a pretty good group there with him.
Yeah, the last I'm going to do is micromanage that group.
I make a motion that we accept South State Bank.
Okay, motion by Mr. Clay to accept South State Bank.
Second.
Second by Mr. Nelson. Further discussion? Being none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. All right, I'd like to, we need to make a motion to authorize the executive director or financial director to negotiate a binding commitment letter on specified loan terms that are satisfactory to the USDA for interim financing with a commercial bank that we rank number one. So said by Mr. Clay. That was long, wasn't it? Get a sore throat from that motion. Motion by Mr. Clay, second Mr. Nelson. Further discussion? Being none, all in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you. John, could we send a thank you letter to India and Kelly on behalf of the board? Thank you for sitting on that committee. Thank you. Moving on to agenda item number 19, Southwest Fifth Avenue Engineering Report. John or Jeff, whomever?
Well, we're both here, so I'll start briefly, but Mr. Sumner is here as the author of the report. Again, this is the Southwest Fifth Avenue area. You got the technical report last month, but it was after discussions. There was a choice to go back and do what we call if you will, a blended project between low-pressure sewer to primarily serve Southwest Fifth Avenue and Seventh Avenue, and then extend the gravity sewer eastward over to the commercial district, since the gravity sewer would probably better serve an unknown commercial flow, whether it's a high flow or intermittent flow, than the low pressure would. So this report was amended to include that alternative, and you can see that it came in at slightly more than the low pressure at 3.78 million, almost 3.8 million, but well below the second alternative, which was gravity sewer at 5.8 million. So Mr. Sumner is here if you want to address any specifics about this project, but this is the final, if you will, technical memorandum to serve this area.
Jeff, you have anything for us?
This really is just an addendum to the last, this is really just an addendum to the last report, the next step, and we'll be happy to do that if this is the direction the board chooses to go, is we will kind of combine the two documents into one, and make a few, minor refinements to it. And I know John's going to talk about funding options here in a couple of agenda items down. That report then, we would add in some environmental analysis and things like that to actually converted into a facilities plan that would be used for at least one of the funding options. So,
And this will get that whole loop around where Gary's at.
yeah, of course, Gary's on sewers.
Yeah, well, next door to Gary.
Yeah, everybody next door to you. The next item is our proposal for design for that low-pressure area, and it basically covers everything from Seventh Avenue over to,
Over to the ditch.
It's a third page, but it's basically this area right here.
Look, I'd see it, wouldn't I? There.
yeah, takes that area up. So
That's the low
it gets-
pressure, and this
it
does show
get-
the
Gets
gravity
Gary
flow.
and all of his neighbors.
Well, it is an area that definitely needs attention, without a doubt, but funding is always a big issue. We have no funding for this project at all, so I can't make any decisions on moving forward personally till we find out how we're gonna pay for it.
Well, at this point, though, it's really just for this technical memorandum that we, as staff and as the consultants, met the concern, the questions of the board, and that you do concur, with the rankings, that the low pressure primarily for that Southwest Fifth and Seventh Avenue residential area would be the way, that it would seem like we would need to go. Too far. When we get into the engineering, the next agenda items, the engineering, and then, of course, the funding, that's where the rubber, if you will meet the road, and how do we move forward with these projects?
So what are we looking for here?
Well, I've only got a question, and that's this: is that gonna be compatible when you do an expansion in that area? What do you do with the low pressure when you get ready to put in a vacuum system for that area, for example?
Well, primarily, the low pressure would be the model that we would serve it for the immediate future. We probably would not go back in there and do gravity sewer or vacuum sewer.
You're not gonna have to duplicate that, that's what I'm.
Correct. There's vacuum sewer isn't proposed for that area simply because there's not enough rooftops there to justify the cost of building a vac station.
I just use that as an example. What I'm saying is, when we expand into that area with something else,
That we wouldn't. The low pressure is the recommended alternative to serve that area
For now and in the future.
going forward.
okay, so the low pressure would be extended.
Right now, there's nothing in there sewer-wise. We looked at gravity, vacuum, and low pressure to serve it, and low pressure
I understand.
came out on top.
And there's really no build-out over there.
Right, there's nothing,
It's pretty much built out.
there's a few lots, but most of them are owned by the person who has a house on the lot next door, and it's likely going to stay that way.
The only thing that you might get in the future would be the Bryant property.
Yeah, Miss Virginia's property, potentially,
Yeah,
but even with the size lots that are consistent in that area, you might be adding 2 or 3 houses there.
yeah.
The only reason I'm asking that is because of the problems with the low pressure Kings Bay. Kings Bay brings all kind of,
Understood.
that was a low pressure,
That was a septic tank effluent pump project, which is a little bit different than this. This is really set up more like a vacuum system in that we're actually putting new grinder pits in. People aren't just dropping a pump into their existing septic tank and hoping that it works.
I'm not being negative, I just,
I apologize, I wasn't here last
All right,
month. But
so let's go through it. The Kings Bay, there are certainly, we deal with Kings Bay a lot, and we can see what the downfalls are, the problems that we face. One, the power comes from the house, and we have no control over the power in the house, like the panel or anything like that. Plus, it's called what they call a step system, septic tank effluent pump, where they just drop a pump in a chamber in the septic tank and only pump the clear liquids to the treatment plant. The solids remain. So that at some point in time in the future, you have to go in there and pump the solids out, along with 2,352 of those disposable wipes that are safe for your septic tank that never do anything. Somewhere thereabouts. We didn't really count them all, but it was somewhere in that neighborhood.
An average?
Every cycle?
So,
An
so-
annual average.
So we understand those pitfalls of that system. What we're changing with on this one is the grinder pump station, as its name implied, is gonna go out at the street level. It'll be away from the house, and the power source will be of one of two places. Either we will have a FPNL drop in a meter can by the pump station so that we can control the power, or we'll run power with the force main from a central location and supply multiple pump stations with power from there. The benefit of that is, if we lose power, we can put one generator out there and power up 20 or 30 stations. So we're trying to take all this into account to make the better mousetrap from what we serve in some other areas to what we need. Do we still go from one pump station to 60 pump stations? Absolutely. That's the downside. We know we'll have to probably change out this grinder pump 10 years down the road, but the cost effectiveness going in is so much better than if we tore up all the streets and the right of way to put in gravity sewer or vacuum. No, they probably, we may end up sharing some if we supply the power, yes.
Yeah. That's the,
But that's, the intent is, it could be one station per house, depending upon the layout. Trees and things of that nature. Or we could at least try to share the two side-by-side houses with one pit, since we're supplying the power.
the preliminary design, we ended up with an average of 1.75, 1.8 houses per pit, so.
And it's $6 million, or,
It's through,
it was 6 million for 100 houses.
yeah, it was 6 million for gravity, or rough number, 6 million for gravity or vacuum, and half that for low pressure,
Right.
as far as an initial capital investment.
Still don't have the money.
Well, we can find it. We've been finding stuff, can't walk away from it.
That's my concern. All right, Jeff, thank you.
Is this informational, or are you going to need action from the board to proceed with the low-pressure system?
That's an easy question. I would say that if there's any action needed on this, that they just accept the findings of the report with no action moving forward. Just accept the report as presented would be probably the only motion we need at any time on this agenda item.
Make a motion that we accept the engineering as written? Is that what we're looking at?
Accept the findings of the report.
Findings of the report is written.
And not moving forward at this time.
Well, that's, it's just accepting the report, nothing more.
Well, we got two agenda items, we're gonna start talking about financing, which is all gonna be part of this puzzle.
That would be the other agenda.
Mr. Ritter, come on up, sir.
We have
Where-
an open motion on the floor.
Yeah, well, hold on one second, we got a motion on the floor. We have a motion to accept the report.
Second.
Second by Mr. Nelson. Discussion?
Mr. Ritter can speak.
Yes, sir?
Good morning, Gary Ritter, City Administrator for Okeechobee. Congratulations, Mr. Chair, being in y'all for your next term. Harry, I think you get the gold star today. Happy St. Patrick's Day. I think you'll get
He's got the green on.
here. I appreciate the fact that you all are considering a project in the southwest section. I think it's been quite some time since you've really done any projects in the city of Okeechobee. This would be the first one that you're considering in quite a long time. I just wanted to, and as Jeff alluded to, I'm one of the very few people in that area that is on water and sewer. Just to give you all an idea of what's going on over there when it gets really wet, there's a lot of old houses in that southwest section going west from well, even from Southwest Third going west all the way to Seventh. One of them, was Jim Kirk's house. Those houses, when they were originally put in there, some of them were built, I think, back in 1976. There was a dirt road that was going through there. And as things began to develop in that area, the roads were built up, you had more rooftops. So although this doesn't really involve the sewer hookup, but there is, when it rains hard, a lot of water that goes through that area that has to push through that area to get to Southwest Seventh Avenue ditch. Consequently, those older houses that are now below the road, when it gets wet like that, their septic tanks, they overflow and they actually go back into their houses. I'll give you one example because I hear from her all the time, and it's my daughter that lives across the street. And when last year, when it got really wet, their septic tank and some of the stuff that accumulates in that septic tank were in their bathtub and then overflowed into my grandson's room. So that area, I think, really needs whatever kind of upgrade that you can give it, because she's not the only one that suffers those consequences when it gets really wet in there. And it does, believe me, the water table gets right up there at the surface. So any help that you all can do in the area would be greatly appreciated by all those folks.
Jim's house flooded just from water coming through that neighborhood.
Yeah.
More than once.
So
Yeah.
the roads are dams.
Hmm?
The roads are dams.
Yeah, they are. They are. When you look at the rooftops that were added since 1976, and one of the other ones is the library, I mean, all that water comes south and then goes west to Seventh Avenue ditch, so.
And in the 70s, we just dug a footer. We didn't haul any dirt in. We dug a footer, hauled a little dirt inside the footer and built a house.
80s too, where I live.
Yeah, exactly. So it is a concern, and it's one that's definitely on our radar, to try to figure out how to. Our big deal now is we know what we need to do. Now we got to figure out how to fund
How
it.
to fund it. And we appreciate the fact that, it's surfaced, got to this point.
So the city would,
Administrator, are you talking about sharing the funding?
you're laughing, but that was my serious question. Speaking for the city council.
Come on, did the county share the funding for all that stuff that goes out there to Bass Pro?
Well, we'll invite them to a meeting. But since you're here.
Yeah, that was my question, to see if you'd be interested in cost sharing.
I don't think so.
You can't answer for the
No,
council.
we just appreciate you doing a project in the city of Okeechobee.
Mr. Calling as a politician, Gary, thank you. Thanks, Gary. We certainly recognize the problem over there. All right, further discussion. Being none, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. All right, now let's find some money, guys. Uh-oh. What agenda item was that? That was,
Now we're on Fund 21.
No, 20.
We're on 20?
all right, agenda item number 20, Southwest Fifth Avenue Engineering Agreement.
So, Mr. Chairman and board members, now that we have the technical memorandum out of the way, and we know that there is a project, and projects have been identified, the next couple steps that we need to go through, certainly the first one would be here in agenda item number 20, is to do some engineering work to come up with plans and specifications for the chosen project, which in the last amendment was the splendid alternative, to segregate out the immediate area, which would be Southwest Fifth Avenue and Seventh Avenue, under a low-pressure system because of the identified problems that have been discussed here today with the stormwater, flooded drain fields, and certainly the public health threat that can be identified. That this, in your board package, is an engineering agreement to do that design, and Mr. Sumner, who was the author of the report, is here to discuss at length his scope of work and fee schedule for the design of that Southwest Fifth Avenue, Seventh Avenue area. And again, it is only the design element we're talking about here. This is not, it will get us to the point where we could actually move forward with construction should there be monies allocated. So we're only talking about the engineering design here. In the next agenda, we would go forward looking at different funding scenarios that we can try to identify and acquire should we go to construction. So that's what's up for right now is scope of work for engineering fees and design element. And Mr. Sumner is here to answer any questions you might have.
Any questions for Mr. Sumner? Besides, how much was this one gonna cost us, Jeff?
And I wrote the proposal as a soup to nuts to include bidding and construction phase services. Obviously, those aren't needed unless the funding is there and we go to bid. The reason we're suggesting moving forward with the design now, and I apologize because I know we're blending agenda items. One of the funding options is a clean water SRF loan that we believe some significant portion of could be with principal forgiveness. In order to apply for that in this cycle, that meeting is in August. We really have to have buildable, bid-ready design documents by June. It's a tight time frame. We feel like if we can get authorization and particularly get started on the remaining survey and get the design going. There are other funding options that, we don't have to have that much, but we feel like that is a good one. So we're hopeful that we can move forward with the design effort.
It's more of the next agenda item.
It
This
is.
primarily is only to get the design plans ready to go for whatever the funding options. There's also provision in there for construction services if we move forward. But this design element, it doesn't matter what agency you go to, USDA, SRF, or the state legislature, having a set of plans. If you remember the term they used a number of years ago, shovel ready, having a set of plans furthers your cause for the funding scenarios. So this is why this is a viable step, regardless of the funding scenario, to be able to move forward. It also does benefit us that you can further refine the cost estimates once you have exact placement and issues identified in that design.
So we're looking to authorize Sumner Engineering to give us a proposed scope of work and fee schedule?
That's what's in your board package right now.
For
So that-
$198,500.
Well, the total amount is $302,885. Of course, the only part that's going to actually be moving forward with would be the up through and including task B1, which is the $198,500.
George, where will we pull this funding from?
I don't know at this point.
Okay. It's honest.
Well, clearly, this is one of those kind of projects that was not included in the budgetary
Budget, right.
process. It could certainly be a contingent offer that we identify where that money would come forward with. But we would have to find, and it's a large chunk of money, $198,500, that we would have to identify from some source. There are contingency monies in the budget that we could pull from, but we do not have a line item clearly identified in the budget right now for $198,500.
But we do need to get this done to be able to get it.
To go to the funding.
To go to the funding.
Seek funding, sure.
All right.
I do have a suggestion here.
Okay.
John's okay with this. We have more money in the fire hydrant fund that I can see us using in the foreseeable future. So if you want to rob from the fire hydrant fund, pay for this, should be able to figure a way to fund it.
We cannot do that. That's not the premise for what the fund is set up for.
Okay.
If we're putting in water mains and adding hydrants, that's certainly doable. Are there sources for money? Yes, sir, absolutely. You have emergency funds set up. There are the 90-day operating capital, which is an extreme amount. There are sources that
Yes.
we could come back with you to next month. We can easily do that. Between now and the next month, Mr. Sumner, as much as he may want to, is not going to go through $198,000. But there are things that we can get started,
Would like to get
whereas
started.
time is of the essence. And we would certainly identifying this area as an area of need. I would suggest to the board that we approve this contract for the either for task B1 or for the entire amount, with the condition that staff come back and tell you where the money is going to come from, but during that 30-day time period, they are going to get busy spending some of that money to get this design work started. Time is of the essence.
Y'all okay with that?
Want to break out B1, task B1, or you want to do the whole
That
thing?
would be certainly a good suggestion, yes, sir.
Yeah, I think so too.
I make a motion that we approve task B1 in the lump sum of amount of $198,500.
Motion by Mr. Clay.
Second.
Second by Mr. Nelson. Discussion.
And with that, please understand, we will bring you back an answer next month as to where that funding source for the 198.5 would come from.
There's no contingencies on this. You're going to come back and tell us where the money's coming from.
Right.
Whether it comes out of a contingency fund or from another fund, we will tell you where the 198.5 will come from.
Okay. Further discussion? Being none, all in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you.
You're there. Thank you, Jeff. And we're moving on downtown, aren't we?
Mr. Chairman, item number 21 is the Fifth Avenue funding scenarios. In your board package is an overview of some of the funds that are available. What I would like to propose is that we do start that exploratory work, looking at one of the funds that Jeff mentioned, the clean water, and making sure that our work effort from here forward would be acceptable for the application process for clean water. The other option that I am going to explore with this legislative session is it wraps up. They open up, typically they have in the past, some grant portals through DEP for projects. Now that we have this technical memorandum available and we have a design underway, I would like to be able to explore those possibilities of putting in a grant request specifically for Southwest Fifth Avenue, and if I'm going to put in the grant request, it would be for the entire project amount, both design and construction, a little over $3 million to do the blended alternative, because while we're addressing the public health concerns in the Southwest Fifth Avenue, 7th Avenue, there are some concerns equally available on the south end of 3rd and 2nd Avenue residential areas. And we have the commercial district that currently doesn't have wastewater. And that may or may not be a limitation for expansion of commercial enterprise or building of commercial enterprise in some of the vacant lots. So the need for the entire project is certainly there. And we would like to pursue those two avenues, both the legislative, the DEP portal, and as well as the clean water SRF.
So what do you need, Tom?
Okay, well, we can, I'm sorry, Tom, go ahead.
No, I was, because I wasn't sure whether this was just these are what are the.
Again, we're promoting it as an informational item.
That's what I
But
thought.
certainly, if the informational item that we're talking about, the direction with the DEP portal and the clean water, if the board concurs with that idea that that's where we should pursue. It's not going to cost any money, it's just action that we're going to take as staff, whether that's the direction the board would like us to go in.
Authorize you to go in that direction.
Is that okay? It's just really where we're trying to pursue the money. It's not going to cost us, it's just, that's the action we're staff.
Direction to you to see where the coffers are.
So we need a motion or just an agreement?
I think it's just direction that sounds reasonable, that's the approach we need to go after.
Let's do it in a motion, direct John to do that.
Yeah, to pursue the avenues available.
So said.
Motion by Mr. Clay. Second, Mr. Nelson. Further discussion? Being none, all in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. John, I have a question for this. In my past 10 years here, we've always heard these horror stories about the lift stations out on Second Avenue and all that overloaded and the problems we have over in that part of town. Future, is this looking to hit that tie between the southwest section and the tie we're putting down Old Dixie? Is this eventually going to go west?
The short answer is, it is tying into the force main that goes to Southeast Second, SE2. It is below, south of the point of tie-in that we're gonna do that interconnect, sending the wastewater flow westward to the new station that is under construction right now. So it potentially could be going west.
Being said, would there be any funding available for the southwest section to help this project out?
There is always that option, but keep in mind that we have taken the grant monies that are set aside for Southwest, as well as pursuing the USDA loan of $8.6 million to hopefully fully fund all of those current projects that are earmarked for the Southwest service area. If we were to add this project to the Southwest service area, we still need to identify the funding, which would mean the USDA grant loan process that we're going right through now would have to be increased.
Would there be any advantage including it into a project already in motion to get funding, or it doesn't matter?
Again, the easy answer is, I don't think there's any advantage, because even if we were to add it to the Southwest service area, we'll still have to do the facilities plan and all this backup supporting documentation as to why to have this project as a part of the Southwest service area.
So the handy wipes going east or west, it doesn't matter, we still got to search funding.
Yes, sir. The safe for your septic tank handy wipes.
Safe for your septic tank handy wipes. Gotcha.
Those things.
Okay, I was just reaching. I'm looking for funding because this is an area that really needs attention, so.
Well, it's gonna be the same time limit.
Yeah.
Because we have nothing associated with the USDA loan or the Southwest Service Area grants. We would still have to do the same process. I would,
There's a reason that we focused on the DEP grant portal and SRF for this project. The idea of reopening that USDA process that we spent almost 2 years going through for the loan that we did get. I beg of you,
Not to do it.
let's not go down.
I concur.
Yeah,
Haven't seen you guys sweat in a while. Wait a minute
George and
now,
I
let's
both had
talk.
hair when we started that project.
Slow down the process you got.
Yeah, let's
Okay.
keep moving.
Just looking for avenues for money.
it's fine.
And we are too.
We are, and again, we looked at those options, and as soon as it was broached, y'all didn't see it because I've regained my health, but it looked pretty rough there. I was worked over from both directions to not even ever mention that again, so.
Consider it. Point well taken. Moving on, agenda item number 22, the Okatani Engineering Agreement. Don't get comfortable, Jeff. Okay.
This is the one I was supposed to have to you last month, so.
Okay.
So in your board package, Mr. Chairman and board members, is the scope of work and fee schedule for the Okatani piping. And just to give you the brief rundown again, this is primarily to serve from the old Okatani recreational area, which may at some point in time, hopefully, be Big Cedar, Bass Pro Shop developed area. And then those points in between coming up the State Road 78 corridor, going up Farrell Boulevard towards the Southwest Service Area, pump station up on Old Dixie. As a portion of this design, there would be a segment of piping to go from roughly around our treatment plant on 78 westward to Farrell Boulevard to serve that State Road 78 corridor that's being developed there through different businesses. Additionally, what I worked into this, and you'll see it in there, there is an option 3, that when they get into the hydraulic analysis, that we do consider a segment of flow from Buckhead Ridge, whether that is the existing homes that are out there or this planned development that is being talked about for many months, just south of the Buckhead Ridge. I can tell you that that engineering group and owner have yet to give us any information. So at this point, it's unknown. We just keep hearing about 1,500 homes or 3,000 homes, or it's out there, but we do not have any information yet as to. But it is prudent that when they get into the design element, when we're trying to decide what diameter force main to bring up from 78 to the Old Dixie property, that diameter is going to be contingent upon what's going to go through it. And so we do have to do that hydraulic analysis. A part of that process might involve, we have a 6-inch and an 8-inch on either side of the road for our water main. If the 6-inch, let's say, determined it might be the right size, then again, one of the other processes we have to look at is, can we utilize that 6-inch water main, convert it over to the force main, and put in a larger diameter water main to serve Buckhead Ridge and/or this planned development down there of 1,600, 2,000 homes. So it's kind of a very involved engineering plan, but it's something that we should take the time and just do the 10,000-foot view of this whole corridor as we're moving forward to give us some kind of planning tool for the future. And that's, Jeff can elaborate on that. Again, it was not pretty to see somebody kicking and screaming and crying, but it's something that we asked of them, and they were able to facilitate that.
I mean, it's just common sense. We're digging a hole going that way, just make sure we put the right pipe in it. I mean, Harry, how many's in your neighborhood out there? What, 1,600 or so?
And we absolutely, that's something we need to look at early on in the process. There are, my initial thought on it is that there are some hydraulic challenges with bringing wastewater because you're really, now you're adding miles to what's already a miles-long pipeline. And if you're adding potentially another 1,500 to 2,000 to 3,000, however many houses that other development's going to be, now you're talking about 4,000 wastewater customers down there, and I think that's about what you have.
Well, the 4,000 connections would about equal what we have now, but we have ample capacity at Cemetery Road.
Yeah.
But the part of the hydraulic process will also then get into the financial process. It may, if these homes happen, it may be cheaper, better, permitting-wise, to build a package treatment plant down there to serve 4,000 homes than to pump it all the way up to our Cemetery Road facility. So again, that's going to be a part of the process, but until those 4,000 homes materialize, all along, we have considered the 1,600 existing homes that could go to Cemetery Road. But if we get 1,500 more or 2,400 more added to our existing, one of the steps, one of the process would be just looking at a treatment plant down.
We've talked about that before, so.
On the design level, you're going to have a drop-dead date. They're going to have to let us know by this point where we can move forward with the design, right? Are they aware of that, or?
At this point, there is no drop-dead date and there is no effort. But if this happens, then there will be a timeline identified by the Sumner Engineering Group that would say, here's where we have to go. The other option is Bass Pro, Big Cedar, is going to move forward very soon because of the easement issues that have been resolved. They're going to set a time limit.
Exactly.
And so if these other people are happening, yes, sir, we would have to give them a date certain that they make a commitment.
Unfortunate, it's not the same as water, it's wastewater. I'd rather we can't put an extra big pipe in there for future use.
Well, and if you put in an extra, and we really went through the same process in designing the master force main for the Southwest Service Area. Because we had to make some assumptions. We assumed that that Grigsby property, you know, that project is going to go forward. We assumed Bass Pro and tying in the existing developments between there and here. We assumed at some point the Fulford property would develop. So there were some, to some extent, you have to build those in and then weigh it against putting in a pipe that's so big that if those don't happen, now you don't have your flow velocities that you need to have an operable system. So that it's the same process we went
Billy
through.
Allen's put his 100 acres up.
I saw that.
Yeah, I saw that too.
So we do have a black box. It has a handle on the side, and it has an outlet, and there's a place for us to put in data, and we'll crank that box and we'll come up with something. It's what we do.
We need a motion to have Jeff move forward, or to approve his,
I would strongly suggest, because of the planned development at Okatani, that we do continue to move forward with this project and get it started.
so we move forward with his engineering agreement.
So said.
And would that be a proper motion?
You're going to approve the scope of work and fee schedule that is presented today under item 22.
So said.
Motion by Mr. Clay. Second, Mr. Nelson. Further discussion? Further discussion, being none, all in favor? Aye. Motion carries.
Jeff, do you need a driver?
Maybe a helicopter.
Hey, if you want to send me some engineering help, tell me I had 40 hours on my time sheet by lunchtime yesterday.
And his boss didn't approve it. Yeah.
Moving on to agenda item number 23, the AMI, or the Advanced Metering Infrastructure Update. John?
Wonderful project. It is continuing to move. We did have a fourth vendor come in and do their dog and pony show as to why we should choose them and how wonderful it is. I would share with you, you had an agenda item today that would have benefited if we had an AMI system, because we could actually show them specifically when the flow occurred. Whether it was before the 22nd, after the 22nd, it would have been beneficial. We would have had it. Or the same thing if we had had the upper limit, let's say, that we might set for a residential structure, that if you use more than 1,000 gallons in a 24-hour period, you get a technical alarm. So
That's
the
what we
AMI,
do.
the AMI is, there are some very good, wonderful benefits with the AMI system, if we would have had one. Like I said, we had the fourth vendor that came in and gave us the presentation. Absolutely every one of them tell you that they're the best things in sliced bread, and we should choose them. As staff, what we typically do then is we go visit a utility that has their system to get their take on how good or bad the system works. And this fourth vendor, we haven't done that yet. It'll be within the next couple of weeks. We'll go to a utility somewhere that has that vendor, and we'll get a read. But be that as it may, the other good news is back in February, the SRF did consider the application that the Holtz consultant put in, and as you might have been made aware, that the amount was approved for a loan, a little over $2 million with almost $500,000 in forgiveness, so that the net cost of the project would be around $1.8 million that would be in as the actual loan. I have since heard that the interest rate for that loan is just under 1%, and the terms is over 30 years. So if we were to take that money, 1.8 million, and look at the semi-annual payments over 30 years, they're roughly a little over $40,000. So about $80,000 a year would be the annual debt service tied to that dollar amount. What we would need to do then is for the finance section to go back and look at, when we look forward to FY23, how does $83,000, let's say that's the annual debt service, how does that figure into the budget? And we have not done that at this time, but it would be an element within the FY23 consideration when we move forward. So we're at this element right now, knowing those numbers, 1.8 million would be the loan amount. Is the board still interested in us still pursuing this? Because the next step is that we develop bid documents, and we actually put this out on the street for a bid to see where those numbers come in. It doesn't lock us into it, but we do go to the next step and we actually acquire bids.
Is that 1.8 include the $100,000 we got from water management? Or is it 1.7 actually?
The answer to that is no. The total amount is there. So we projected what the construction amount was gonna be, 2.3 million. Until we get bids, we don't know if it's gonna be 3.3 because of COVID and delays, supply chain this and whatever, or is it gonna be still at 2.3 or somewhere south? These are just budgetary numbers. 80,000, approximately 83,000 is the low end of the expected annual debt service. The 100,000, while it will impact it, it's not gonna have a tremendous impact on lowering that dollar.
Concerns that I have as an individual board member. Actually, let me start by saying it's something we need. This board has evolved in trying to bring us up into the 21st century, expansions, this is part of it. This is great. 2.3 million or 1.8 is a big pill to swallow for meter infrastructure. What's harder to swallow is $83,000 increase on our debt service when we have Treasure Island on the radar. You know, we're going to be looking for funding, and that could affect our funding for future growth.
Well, it's certainly going to impact, but the $83,000, what we have not done, and what, is an element, is at what point is the customer service, what benefit is that to the customer service, so that you don't have the man with the fish cleaning station coming in with a, 600,000 gallon bill, or this couple that had a $28,000. There is some benefits that might fall into that intangible level, that it's a quality of service that we're providing to our customers. The second part of it is, because it is this AMI process, it is going to trim down some of our operational costs, because we'll no longer have to travel to each meter to be able to generate the monthly bill. So it is going to lower our operational costs some. We just haven't put a number to that yet as a part of this analysis.
How many meter readers do we have?
4. And we read, there's approximately 9,500 meters. We read every one of them every month.
So that would have, you could eliminate.
They'd be moved to somewhere, other department.
Right, I mean, but
Shifted around.
it'd be shifted around to another need, but if you look at it my way, the $83,000 versus losing 2 employees is more than a wash. You take 2 salaries out of it, well, or 4, however many.
You will always still need meter readers, because there'll be
Still gonna need 'em.
checks they might have to do, or leaks at the meter. You will always need meter readers. The question is, what do you need?
Well, that's the reason I said 2.
I appreciate your sales pitch. I'm on board with this, by the way. I think we need to move in this direction. I'm just kind of concerns about future growth and expenses. Is there a potential maybe of carving this out into projects where we have the funding for it available, and do this area, search for more funding, do another area, search for more funding, do another area, instead of doing the whole?
We did look at a phased approach, but by then, you're locked into a certain vendor, and when you go back for phase 2, phase 3, who knows what those prices are gonna be. So we looked at it from a standpoint as, what is the worst case scenario? And the worst case scenario is every meter has to be swapped out. We're gonna put it out to bid, and we're gonna know that we're not, out of 9,600 meters, let's say there's 9,000 of those are for the residential and commercial districts that have the 5/8 by 3/4. We may not need to replace 9,000 meters. So if we had allocated, let's say $150 or $200 to swap out those meters, and we only have to do 6,000, then it's not gonna be a full $1.8 million. I think that makes sense.
How many times have we seen a proposal come in under budget?
And guys, this thing is, I just took a $12,000 hit on trailers in 1 month. I'm paying $85,000 for a trailer that a year and a half ago I paid $61,000 for.
Yeah, this number's gonna end up bigger.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
my-
1.8.
Yeah.
But again, it's the point of, if you can tell me right here, right now, today, we're not doing it, I'm good. The next step is to go ahead and acquire.
See what it's
bids
gonna cost?
to see what it actually will cost.
That's reasonable.
That's reasonable, yeah. I said, I'm on board. I think we need to evolve to this, but funding always an issue.
Yeah, 2.3, and then we're at 3.1 to do the
And we only
sewer
got-
over there.
and we only got a $100,000 grant.
Yeah. So, I
The
mean,
rest of
Well,
us-
we actually got 500,000, because they have the 487,000 of forgiveness, so we're really up to about 600,000 in free money.
But then we got a loan that we pay 1% interest on, so you got that.
Well, no, you're not gonna get around the 1.8 million, or if we put it out to bid and it's 4 million, then we can say, it's too rich for us.
I'm not
But-
gonna talk anymore. I'm gonna let the board make a decision.
I think you get a lockdown price on it.
I would strongly suggest we go ahead and get bids, and
Yeah.
then we know for sure
Where we're at.
what we're talking about here.
Didn't you say the other company that came in the other day was 5 million?
Well, we've had prices ranging from the low 200s, like 201, 190, to the one that came in last week. They said it was gonna be anywhere from 4.7 to 5.2 million as a number. I said, well, can you give me a detail of what made up that number? Because I don't know what they figured into that number. And they have yet to give us that. So for right now, it's just a number, but I don't know what went into that number. And they're supposed to give us a detail.
They'd have to give me something.
Yeah. We're having to reach out for 1.8. We might as well go for the whole 5, huh? No, kidding. Yeah, but I agree with Tommy. We
Yeah,
need to-
I mean-
And Harry.
Until they can provide us some kind of detail, I'm not too worried about a 4.7 and 5.2. I just, I don't know what went into it. So it's just a number.
Yeah, Mr. Wise wanted to give you a little bit more options. There's your option right there. He doesn't need to come to the board if you have that information right in front of him, and you've just got your,
Well, it
I agree.
certainly would be,
excuse me.
the AMI project as an example for what it was today. Number one, we could have, or he could have, gotten text messages of high use.
Correct.
when it was happening. And certainly, the idea after the fact, coming in and say, happened right here from, 3 PM to 6 PM, or whatever the deal is, over these 2 days. We would have actual data to show them when it happened. Not that it would make it any better, but we would have data.
More nothing but benefits I see with this project. I really am on board, but
Well, it's, I see it as certainly, other than the cost, there are a lot of more items on the upside than on the downside for something.
I agree.
I just wouldn't want something like this to get in the way of us doing a $3 million sewer job.
Yep. It's always a concern.
Prioritize. But we do need to know what this is gonna cost, John.
So what do we need to do? Just give you direction to?
If you say
Continue moving forward?
continue on, and we'll continue on, and we'll put it out to bid, and then we'll get some pricing.
Bring it back as soon as you can.
I move that we authorize staff to move forward with the bidding process in this project.
Second.
Motion by Harry, second by Tommy.
Thanks, Harry.
Further discussion? Further discussion. Being none, all in favor? Aye. Motion carries. Agenda item 24, Connor Gable Water Main Improvement, NTP. What's NTP?
Notice to proceed.
Notice to proceed?
I hope you got more in the board packet than I got. I got one piece of paper, so what,
That's all we got.
really? Did you get the notice to proceed?
Nope. Just got a cover sheet.
Okay,
But
I apologize.
we pretty much know what's going on there. PR, didn't we see it last month?
You know, there's supposed to be a recommendation letter from the engineer who evaluated the bids, and so you made the notice of award last month. So what had to well, you do have some of the paperwork here. The contractor did give us the agreement. They did give us the bonds. They did give us the insurance statement. And based upon that, since they had done their required work of the project, the engineer's recommendation is that we do move ahead with issuing the notice to proceed.
Yeah, that was my understanding. We were just waiting for them to meet the criteria, and they have done that.
Last month, you did get the bid tab showing the different bids, that they were the low bidder, and you did issue the notice of award. Once that was done, then they had to do their requirements of signing the agreement, presenting that to you, the bonds, the insurance statement, and so we could issue the notice to proceed.
Okay, that being said, I'll entertain a motion to authorize the board chairman to approve and issue the notice to proceed to PRP Construction Group LLC for the Connor Gable Water Main Improvement Project.
So said.
Motion by Mr. Nelson,
Second.
second by Mr. Clay. Further discussion? Being none, all in favor? Aye. Motion carries. 25, public comment. Heard enough from folks.
We already had it.
Thank you very much for coming today.
Yeah.
Nice to see you, Mr. Ritter. Okay, item number 26, Mr. Conley.
4 things. Unusual, right?
Yes.
Our Beatty agreement, our Beatty easement, we have run into a little hitch. There needed to be a correction on one page of that document. Had to do with the notarization part. Why that has not been done, I can't tell you. Every now and then you have these things that make you question your sanity. I spoke with the attorney on this, and there are 2 attorneys over there that we're dealing with. One deals with the trust, the other one deals with the easement itself. The one that's dealing with the trust, apparently there's a big wall between them. I could have had this done in 5 minutes, but anyhow, I can't prepare documents for their client. He promised me he would be, the one I'm dealing with, promised me he'd be on the doorstep of the other one to get that corrected, to get it back over here so we could get it wound up. I thought it was done. John went to record the easement, and then they caught something I missed. All the attorneys missed it because a name is not correct in the notary. Simple thing to correct. So that one is still pending. Hopefully, we'll get it done. Number 2, I have approved the closing documents on the 15th Street Homes Lift Station site. John, I gave you a copy of that approval. That should be in the works to get wound up very shortly. We have until April 15th to close it, but we'll get it done early. Third, I submitted a claim against an estate. A claim against some surplus funds that resulted from a tax sale. Property was sold. It's actually the Primitive Baptist Church site that's down here on South Okeechobee. It's been there forever. That sold. The city wound up buying that at a bidding process, and there are quite a few excess monies. We are owed about $1,800 and some odd dollars. That I have submitted on behalf of the OUA to get us paid for delinquency on that account. The 4th thing is I have also submitted a claim against an estate for the big sum of $157. We'll get that paid, I'm sure, as a part of the estate process. Those are my 4 items, and they're informational only. I seek no action from you guys.
That Primitive church thing, though, that, the city's supposed to be, redoing that, from what I understand. That's part of the
What is that?
old Primitive Baptist Church there. That's, Rollerson family built it or something. There's some kind of piece of history there.
That is, and the city is the one that wound up buying
Wound up
that.
with it, yeah.
They're hoping
Yeah.
to make a museum out of it, yeah.
Yeah.
But you know how many heirs there are in the,
That's what I remember hearing.
Yeah.
It was just off the charts.
my gosh, as a matter of fact, one of them was the box, one of them was in here today, because it's,
tax sale instead of trying to get it donated.
and I'm surprised it wasn't exempt, but I'm, you know, religious facilities are usually exempt from taxes.
When it was quit being a religious facility, when they closed it, it lost its exemption.
I don't know what the use was. I have no idea, but apparently it lost the exemption.
Ain't been nobody in it in years, Tom.
Yeah, I mean, it's been vacant, it's been sitting there, but there had to be a use because there was a water account there. I don't know whether it's on sewer or not, I can't remember that right this minute.
I was just glad to see the city give it.
But apparently the city wanted it, and
Water and sewer.
eventually they'll get clear title to it without having to run down 150 heirs.
Rollersons.
The Rollerson bought it. Yeah, but yeah, Peter in Louisiana.
Only one of
Rollerson.
those, isn't there?
It is a piece of history. I mean,
Yeah,
I hope the city seeks to preserve it.
that was like, Harry heard the same thing I did.
I hope they will. I really do. I have no idea what they're planning. I'm sorry Gary left. We could have asked him.
Dowling told me that they were trying to make a cowboy museum out of it. Or at least part of the property.
With the city buying it, it's not gonna be on the tax roll any longer. And I don't know who was bidding against them on that. I mean, it's a pretty good sum on the, excess surplus funds. It's a pretty good amount. Anyhow, it is what it is, so.
Well, it'd be nice to see someone besides Gil Culberth try to preserve Okeechobee.
Okeechobee's rich in history.
I love his gas station.
Well, Gil may have been bidding on the other side, I don't know. But it's been there as long as I can remember, it's
And you can remember longer than I can.
true.
Well, Johnny Mac grew up in that little house across the street from it.
Yes. And the way it's probably structured so it's not going anywhere, I don't know how many hurricanes
Unless you
it's been
drop a
through.
match in it. And it's probably Dade County pine.
It probably, I bet you it is.
The old feed mill going up.
Oh,
Fast.
yeah.
That was a fire.
Oh, you should have run through the door when I did. And it goes boom, and I run back the other way. I said, the lab's right around that corner there to the firemen. But you could hear that. By the time we got there, I was the first one there before the fire department. And when we went through the front door, just try to locate the fire, it was already, because that thing had two roofs. They built a metal building over the old flat top building. That fire, you could hear it running that roof. So that whole, and it was sprayed with that, remember Old Day Brothers?
Yes.
It was
Foam.
sprayed with foam.
Ooh, flammable.
Was it, which building are you talking
The
about?
old
United
mill,
Feed.
feed mill.
United Feed.
Oh,
We
yeah.
shut down the whole end of the world that night. Railroad, everything.
Yeah, I remember that phone. They did park drugs for that also.
We drug fire hydrant, or fire lines all the way through our parking lot, across the railroad tracks. We had other fires, and then we're all standing there watching the fire. Somebody goes, "Hey, what about Central Gas?" None of us had ever even, I mean, you're right there by that,
Oh, my
how many
God.
1,000-gallon propane tank that was literally 100 feet from the mill.
Somebody put water on that over there.
Oh, yeah.
Radiating off that, I mean, it certainly got things hot.
It took 12-inch I-beams that we had put in there and put those indoor tanks. It took those, and when those tanks come down, they completely twisted around and set down. 12-inch I-beam. The hottest fire I ever seen in my life.
How much pine was in there?
It was all Dade County. Yeah, because it was old lap. Remember how they used to lap the walls?
Oh,
So it was all lapped, and the roof was all lapped. And, you know, the roof was probably 6-inch lap. And then on top of that, you had foam. And probably between the foam and the lap, you probably had 50 years of shingles or tar paper. There wasn't no putting it out.
no, it wouldn't have.
No, it wasn't no way to put it out. Started in the, panel room in the very back, not the panel room where we run
Yeah,
feed, but
yeah.
the electrical panel room in the back.
Hey, once it started, there would have been didn't take much for it just,
We were dragging, I mean, I had half my fleet parked over there. You know, my beet fleet.
There's so much combustible dust in those feed mills.
Well, let me tell you, the thing that blew was the lab.
Yeah.
Because we were doing all that alpha toxin stuff in there, and we had all those chemicals in there. When that thing blew that side of that building out, you talk about a bunch of us
well, I
leaving.
needed a little air to get in there. Once the air got in,
It was amazing, amazing fire.
lighter than knots.
Sorry I had to step out. Are you done, Counselor?
That's all I've got.
We certainly appreciate it. Thank you, sir.
My pleasure.
Agenda item number 27, John.
Chairman and board members, everything is there. You can see there's been lots of progress on the southwest area as far as bids going out. If you ever do go out there, the site civil work has progressed, the culvert's in, the road's in, the perimeter fencing is done. They're almost done with that segment.
And the hootie owl, or the tortoises has moved on, huh?
Yeah, we're done with that.
The tortoises were abandoned.
The tortoises are done. We will be getting a bill shortly for a list, some of that work, but it won't be the 30,000 that was allocated for relocating them. The master pump station has been bid. We have put out recently the actual bid for construction for the force main. So that's going to be coming in April 16th or something. I don't know. We'll have the bids coming in about a month on that. That progress. The material's already been ordered, so it's in the works of being delivered. So there is money being spent and action actually moving forward. We are still projecting to have the collection system going out to bid. The engineer says maybe by June. I'm hoping that it won't be sooner than that. But there's still a lot of work to be done, so that's where we're moving forward. And then, of course, the Okatani, they'll start that design work soon. Pine Ridge Park, we have out for bid right now the demolition of the old package treatment plant and the backfilling of the pond. And the collection system is out for bid right now in Pine Ridge Park. Southwest Fifth Avenue, we talked about AMI meetings. I would only add one thing that I did not put on here. In the next coming weeks, I will put out an RFP for engineering work to begin the Treasure Island process of selecting a design engineer for that project. So that should be out on the street within the next couple of weeks. Other than that, I'll be happy to answer any questions you might have.
Any questions?
Is that experimental project in Buckhead Ridge completed?
We have startup of the treatment plant. The short answer, let me answer that, no. The startup of that treatment plant is scheduled for the 22nd, 3rd, and 4th. So next week will be the startup. What they have not given me is the final demolition of the septic tanks. There's 7 of them on the north end. They're connected, but we just need to get in there and demo those septic tanks and pull them out. And then we'll be close to having that project done as far as the construction. And then they enter the testing phase for 6 months to a year. I can tell you, just to the south of there is a road that was put in ages ago. It's called Orange Loop. There were two people that were developing lots in there that wanted to put a short gravity sewer extension, a lateral, if you will, to tie into that treatment plant. We finally had come to some kind of arrangement where they could do it. And next thing I know, they've sold 4 or 5 other lots and everybody wants to join in. That's problematic because now we have to actually go through and survey it, do the design work. It's going to be somewhat problematic, so it'll probably be coming back to you next month that there will be an engineering fee for surveying and design of a gravity sewer system for Orange Loop, which will add 16 customers to that small package.
Got a question, John, if I may. With all the projects that we have and looking towards the future, et cetera, does it pay for us to have an in-house engineer now?
You do. You got me.
I realize that.
So where that works, when we do the small water main projects for our crew, that's where I come in because it doesn't cost the OUA $10,000 or $15,000 to do that engineering. When you start talking about these bigger projects, it's not just an engineer. You're going to have an AutoCAD designer. You're going to have this word processing, the administrative. It would not be beneficial to have an engineering group for the little bit of work that we do.
You'd have to buy a firm,
Yes, sir.
basically.
It's not just one person. You'd have to have 2 or 3 people to be added. So and then you get the liability, and it's just not, at where we're at right now, it's just not worth it. But for the small water main projects, absolutely. It saves $10,000 or $15,000 every time we do one of these things.
Right, I'm just curious.
But speculating on the new project, the old Harvey project, for whatever it's gonna be now, and Buckhead Ridge, Buckhead. I mean, if they did put 3,000 in there, now you're up to 4,600, close to 5,000.
Yes, sir.
So you probably would be better off to do the small package plant like we talked about years ago down there.
Yes, sir. And the other benefit to that is if they're talking about 1,500 to 3,000 new homes, the trade-off is what's the pump station and force main cost versus just building a smaller package treatment plant.
Yeah, and we talked about that, with all the state-owned land down there and everything. I mean, right straight across the road from that's water management. And that 600-acre block there on the road on Tomato Grade, that first block, that's water management. There's another 13 acres or 14 acres on the other side of Tomato Grade. As soon as you turn on, it belongs to water management. So there's plenty of places to go with affluent down there. I mean, I know a guy that'll take it. Yeah, I mean, seriously, so it would be and the ditching's already there.
So again, the part of that process would be if they are, it is a serious project and gonna happen, then they would be tasked with having an engineering group design it. We would probably hire our own engineering group to oversee the design to make sure it's what we want. But it probably would turn out to be in a small package treatment plant down there, as opposed to a pump station. But at least with the element of the Okatani design, we could look at that to say, if it is feasible, we could still pump it to us. But it's gonna be tough to pump it that far, because you're talking about probably, Harry could probably tell us, from the river to the end of Buckhead is probably, what, every bit of 2.5 miles, maybe?
Yeah, something like that.
And then to go, now you're gonna not only go down the road, but you gotta go all the way to that far corner of that property.
Right. That's gonna add probably another 2 miles or 1.5 miles to it. So it's a long road just to get off
That-
Buckhead Ridge.
That's 500 something acres, so it's basically a mile further. Plus, now you got angle, it would be
The service area goes all the way to Indian Prairie Canal.
yeah, absolutely.
Maybe that kind of development spurs further development.
So So it's just something we have to look at, but there's not, as I told the design engineer that's been in touch with us, until they bring us something firm, other than just talk, there's no action on our part.
What I was alluding to earlier, we reach that drop dead date. We have to size that force main, the Highway 78 corridor force main. That's gonna be our only option at that point, because they won't be able to be included in that if we.
We don't have to go across. the street.
Well, it basically eliminates something, you know, that they don't have to consider. Now they just probably have to look at a treatment plant down
Any other
there.
questions?
Any other questions for me? Yes?
You got a question?
No, sir.
Briefly, what's going on with Matt Pearson, the 66 acres? Does that get resolved?
2 out of 3 items have been resolved. He signed the agreement and dropped a check fine, but as far as I know, he hasn't dropped off the insurance statement. We're still waiting on an insurance.
Okay.
You're gonna say the check bounced.
What, I'm glad you brought that up. Why don't we run that fence on across in front of Sammy's old house and tie that all in and quit mowing that, turn cows in there?
Well, we could.
And quit the upkeep. I mean, the house ain't, I mean, we voted to tear the house down years ago.
Right up on the highway?
Yeah, you just run the road, just run the fence right on, I mean, it's our fence right there anyway.
Yeah.
Just tie that corner in and have him turn cows in there.
What we actually asked about was whether we could sell that property. We need to take a little bit off the back end to add it as protection to the pond that we built back there. But conceivably, we could just sell that property.
I'm sure that old boy next door would probably be in the market for it.
Well, no telling what the other business is going in. They may need additional space, but technically, what we were gonna use that property for never materialized.
Right.
We talked to the fire department, didn't we, at one time, to go in there and use it as a test burn?
Burn, yeah, I mean, we voted years ago to demolish it, take it down.
Well, I think we had talked about it, but I don't think there was ever actually.
No, it voted, we voted on it. We voted on
I
it.
think that at the point you were thinking about using it for storing material or something.
We originally had bought it for 2. One, because of the use we had behind it. Actually, let me back up. When we needed the pond area, the lady selling the property said it's all or nothing. So we ended up buying all of it. Then Sammy's place became available, and to complete that whole end, we ended up buying it, and we were gonna use it as maybe a storage element. Never materialized, the market crashed, all these developers didn't show up. We had to change our plans.
Now's the time.
I'll get to
Well, if you want me to explore that possibility, we can explore that
Just sell it.
possibility to sell it.
Ready. I think we
Sell it.
should. It's.
Explore
The
it.
market is ripe right now. Let's
Yeah, I mean-
do something.
He's asked about the piece across the street, and it's not for sale yet,
This market's hot right now.
so,
And we'll just sell it as is? and they can-
as is, as is. Move in ready.
I will look at that. Again, we're gonna carve a little bit off the back end to add as a buffer to the pond.
And we got a right of way down that canal bank?
It's in between the house and the fenced area that we own is the driveway to that backside.
They might ask you to move that to the other side of the property, which would be no big deal.
We have that.
I'd do that anyway, I'd put it on that ditch bank.
No, the driveway we have is, if you're looking at the house, it's on the left-hand side of the house. And we own that little piece next to it that's all overgrown.
Right.
We could move the driveway onto that piece and leave everything that's inside the fence for sale. Give them a little more highway frontage.
Yeah. I'd definitely have someone, well, of course, we gotta surplus it and do all that, right?
Yes. We have a, what, sir?
We'd have to surplus it.
Well, eventually, we would have to say that parcel will surplus, and then we decide whether we want to list it with an agent, which we have never really chosen to do. We've always just held an auction, but because we only have one
Or
small piece,
Advertise for bids.
it's probably better to list it with an agent
I'd
and let
list
it go.
I'd list it right now.
Okay, I will explore it.
They're selling in
Advertise for
7 days
bids,
and
so-
closing in 30. We can be done within a month.
Sell it.
Oh, yeah, kettle lease. I signed that and saw the check and everything, 2 weeks ago or 3 weeks ago, so I figured Pierce is, I thought it was done.
He was supposed to bring it, Michelle's confirmed that it hadn't been dropped by, so I'll just have to send him another email and text, saying where's my name.
All right, moving on to the last and final item, items from the board. Any items from the board today?
Yes.
Mr. Nelson?
Question, it looks like we are bursting at the seams in this building over here. What's the opinion of looking for another building, a larger building, or?
What you got in mind, Steve?
Well, Drivers Bureau building is available, I think.
Tax collectors.
Tax collectors.
John, where were we at on our grants that we were looking at to restore this thing?
We never got funded the last time, so I was hoping that if the board is so inclined to go back to that firm and say, let's give it the third and final shot to see if there's historic grants, or we could go with another firm and try it again and see what comes of it. The thought process is, or at least what I was also thinking about, is to try to reach out to the owner of the old, where the bail bondsman is here, to see if they wanted to sell that building. If we were to buy that, then something like the meter readers and storage can move into that, which would free up a little bit of room under this roof, so that we could at least get one more office for the assistant director and go out and,
That belongs to A&D Water, right?
I think he sold it to his daughter. You know, Katie,
Yeah, I know Katie.
reach out to her.
Okay. Yeah, she graduated with my daughter.
At the time, they were happy just to get the check from the bail bondsman, and they don't even use the building other than for advertising, I think. But we asked, get a pretty good price on it. But we're to the point now where it is kind of busy in here, pretty tight. And I would, looking at that long-term succession deal and the amount of projects that we have, an assistant director would would help me out tremendously. We have 3 projects out for bid or under bid right now, soon to add 2 more, and then Treasure Island. I mean, there's gonna be a lot of work for just one person to manage, and right now it's Jamie and I,
Well,
along with our regular work.
I'd love to see this building restored. I mean, you know,
But if
the
you
history.
restore the building, though, you have certain restrictions put on the building. So am I to assume that the OUA would stay here?
You can still run your business out of here.
I know, but there are certain improvements you can't make.
No, you can't expand it, but you
No.
can,
We're just talking about the exterior. I think,
Right.
well, no, we were talking about.
We're doing everything, exterior and interior.
Everything was being remodeled.
We have wiring that is 1920s with the little screw-in fuses. I mean, it's very old. And if we were to put that kind of money in the exterior, I would strongly suggest we go through the interior and just fix it all up. And what that would also benefit us, it might mean that we can make more out of less. There's a lot of open space. And if we get a better design, we might be able to incorporate even more office space with what we have.
And I'll definitely talk to Katie about that, or ask anyway.
So we've kind of dismissed what you were talking about. Let's go back to that. Steve was inquiring about the old tax collector's office, 2-story drive-through, the whole 9 yards.
I can check with the county on that, but I can tell you that at least one floor has been turned over to the contractor that's building the new jail.
Oh, really? Ajax?
And then I thought I heard the long-term is, you might have to battle the sheriff for that building. They were gonna move, again, the topic I've heard, they have a number of offices throughout the city, where different departments are kind of spread out.
Right.
And they were gonna put them all in that one building,
The
so.
Detectives Bureau, all that stuff is
Not
gonna come
Connex.
back there.
So, I mean, we can always ask, but I
Did that answer your question? Didn't want you to go home without a question answered.
Steve and I had talked about that, and I was, my goodness.
the Alderman building, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Now, the driver's license thing across the street smaller than this, as far as, I mean, that's what he said.
They've already moved capital projects into that.
Have they? Okay. So,
I mean, I could certainly reach out to the county and say, do you have any other buildings that you're not using that you'd want to sell to?
Doesn't hurt.
well, just a thought, you never can tell. We might be able to get some historical money or some marketable value out of all these wrought iron chickens and things they're putting out in the park over here. I mean, cows they're putting out in the park over here.
Careful,
I forgot it was chickens, it was cows.
careful.
Thinking of something else.
Pretty important to some.
I know, but I mean, that might make this building more marketable.
It might. I mean,
Being a historical building and they're,
Would you like me to try to find out about the historic grant process to know?
I would.
Sure, why not?
time again. John, you had mentioned to me about a presentation, a company was gonna come in for a CMAR, is that falling away?
They never responded, even though I reached out to them, just to bring the board. There was a firm that specialized in design construction, and they were interested in taking the Treasure Island project off of us and doing the whole design, construction. And I shared with them that my feeling is that would be great for me to take something off, but it's not something that I'm really terribly excited about. But I thought it would have been important to have that presentation to the board, just so you know what some of your options are. And they said that they had a conflict with the meeting today. If you thought that's something that you wanted to hear from them, I could try to say, well, the next meeting is next month, here's the date, are you all available?
I
I'd
think,
like to see you hire 2 people.
I think the board should hear that, just as an option, not that it's the direction we're really wanting to go into, but it's what the school board did with their new school. They hired a CMA, construction manager at risk, where they handle everything. Take everything away from this board, you give them the dollars, they build the project.
And with that, then you lose some control over the project.
You absolutely do. So that's why I'm thinking the board should at least hear some options.
It's just one of those deals that you don't ever, there's always strings attached. And the current process that we have where this board engages a design professional to work for them, keeps that control under this board.
The benefit is, once they quote that price, it will not go over. Any extras, overruns, did not fall. But if it comes in under budget, they do refund the money. That's the only positives to it that I
The
can.
other trade-off is, since they do the control, they can cut whatever corners they want to keep it under budget. And so all I'm suggesting to you is, when you hire a professional, be it an architect, engineer, whatever, to work for you, they have your best interest at heart. When you assign it out to them, say, I want this building built for $50 million, you don't have that control anymore.
That's right. And you go on with other business. You let them.
So I'm just saying, so that's a part of the process that you have to hear. It's a wonderful presentation, sat through it here. It is, but you just have to keep that in mind, that it's not always cracking up or, being what you see. I mean, there are some trade-offs.
Well, I'm thinking if they contact you again, let's talk and consider putting them on an agenda.
I'll reach out to them and ask them if they want to do it next month.
Let's let them call us.
I still think, we gotta push forward, for lack of better words, for 2 coaches in waiting. Because you're at the end of your trail, and we need some people in here.
Oh, there is no doubt, and part of what I struggle with is trying to find out where to put everybody. And so the next option is, if we're gonna go the historic route, I'm fine with that, because then we can reset the footprint inside this building.
Yeah.
If that doesn't work out, there is at least a local architect, and there are builders that we can engage, and I will engage, and bring them in and say, here's a floor plan, make me 2 more offices.
Yep.
And so if we don't do the historic route, then with us doing our budget planning for next year, we will have to incorporate some money in there somehow, some way to reshape this building, and sooner rather than later.
Yeah, and we don't need to be waiting to hire. We need to be looking, and we've had this conversation.
The sands and the clock are running out.
Yeah, we need to be I'd say we need to be looking now, for somebody. And if we have to put them at a pup tent in the parking lot, big deal,
Put a trailer out.
We can do that.
you know?
We'll keep the Farrell House, by golly, and you and your assistant will be down there. You have no budget to remodel, though.
Well, the problem with the Farrell House is,
Not the whole roof leaks.
well, let's put it this way, it is bad form when you walk into a few buildings and you see whether it's cloudy or sunshine.
Yeah, but you just gotta go in the back door.
I'm just saying, it's not, I mean, you don't need air conditioning because it's fully, but it's,
I think your solution with this barber shop out here, Bales Bond's been moving your meter readers out there and opening up a little more that you had talked to me about. I think that's a great solution.
it's a fast fix.
Exactly. It's done right then.
The building's in bad shape. I mean, we'd have to put some effort into it, but it is a very, very fast fix and serves our immediate need.
That's been a barber shop since,
It was a tattoo parlor, it's,
it's barber shop, there was two barbers. It was him.
One time there was a pool hall, I know,
Well, that was before, that was your time. My time, it's been my time, the pool hall was up the street.
Reeves Barber Shop, Vernon Reeves had a barber shop.
Mr. Reeves, yes.
Any other items to come before the board? Being none, meeting is adjourned. Thank you, everybody. Now we can chew the fat.
We need to get some people hired.
What you got, girl?
Running out of time.
Because he's gonna retire, he's already retired. He's just helping us out for a year or two. But he's already took it.
thank you, sir.
Things have changed.
Yeah, I mean, you know, you do this because you want to. You're retired.
They don't have enough staff down there, and then
Forever. It's close to the end of his.
PRP.
As long as we got Steve,
Get it all
give us
done
good medicine.
Drugs.
Hey, I appreciate y'all keeping the board the same, because now I'll have to go change the cover sheet on the plans.
I don't like it either. I know when I was in lending, we couldn't ask a customer to give up his rights. I didn't think so. That just doesn't make any sense.
I guess when they get this baby.
Thank you. Just
Oh.
confirmed my thoughts about that.
John, I will not be here next month. There's no way I can make it. My wife's birthday is on the 9th. We're gonna be gone.
Hawaii with Melanie?
No, some
Alaska cruise, they're real
something
cheap now.
Rosemary Beach or something in the Panhandle. I don't know.
But the meeting's on the 21st.
I know, but
Okay.
the time I do, I don't think there's any way I can make it back.
Stay married. Right? I have a wife like that.
My problem is I'm working in a different state, so for me to, I have to really work at this to get home, you know? So, but my granddaughter had a cow show this week, so I just took the whole week working in the house, so.
My wife's not happy.
For you, ma'am. Thank you.
Really?
Then she'll be unhappy that I'm home 7 days a week. It'll just turn the other way.
It's something to do.
Well, I've been building projects